I'd like to illustrate an important concept about leadership. And to do that, I'm going to use these bottles right here. All these bottles are empty. They're in this container. And I have here this jug of water. And the jug is full. And my objective is to get this water into these bottles. And to save time, I'm going to put the bottles on the floor. And I'm going to pour the water from this height into the bottles. Just like this. Again, my objective is to fill these bottles. Now, the question is this. How much water actually got into those bottles? Let's take a look. And we can see that if we look at this one, that's empty. This one, that one had a little bit in it. A little bit, tiny little bit. This one, also barely a few drops. This one had nothing in it. This one, well, that got a few drops in it. This one has a few drops in it too. And if we kept going, I think we'd find on the outside, there's absolutely nothing in those bottles. Now, what if I were to do this? If I were to take one of these bottles and I were to fill it from this jug, just like this. Now, the question is this. What is the difference between pouring from this height here and this height here? Well, the answer is actually very simple. It's a difference of 4 feet. It's a question of proximity. The water is the same, the bottle is the same, the jug is the same, nothing has changed except for the distance. We're talking about a difference of 4 feet. Now, if these bottles here represent your people, and the jug represents you, and the water represents what they need, and this tray represents the whole organization. What is this illustration telling us? Well, it's really very obvious. It's kind of intuitive. And that is that if you want to really develop your people, and especially your leaders, you need to get close to them. You cannot develop them if you're doing it from this height, from this distance. The only way to develop your people and to develop your leaders is to get close to them. To get close enough to invest yourself in their lives so that you can pour into them what they need in order to be able to succeed. Now, this is disarmingly simple when it comes to filling bottles like this with water. But it's much more involved when we're talking about investing in people's lives to help them succeed. Intuitively, we know this is right. But what happens if we don't do this? Well, one thing that will happen is that people will start leaving because they will not be getting what you can give them, and so they will leave, they'll go to the competition, they'll find other places where they can get what they need. And there's plenty of research out there that tells us that people quit bosses, not organizations. They are not quitting this. They are quitting this. Why are they quitting this? Because they're not getting what they need. Now, not everyone leaves. But those who stay, what happens to them? Well, they start climbing up. They will start becoming impervious to the help and the input that you could give them in order to help them succeed. And what happens to them after a while? Well, they're obviously not performing, so in a little while what will happen is that they will either leave or they will be asked to leave. So we find that the organization is dwindling. You're losing talent. And what happens to the organization? It's getting dysfunctional. It's atrophying. It's getting weaker because the people who create the competitive edge of that organization are no longer there. Now, I don't know where you are in your organization. You may be leading a team. You may be leading a department. You may be leading a division. You may be leading the entire organization. It doesn't matter what the scope of your responsibility is. Whatever the scope, you need to become good at doing this. You need to become good at investing in people's lives, at pouring water into these bottles. And to do this, you need 2 things. You need content, that's the water, and you need the process. You need to be able to pour into the person's life. We have both. We have the best thinking in terms of content, in terms of leadership development, and in terms of developing great leaders. And we also have processes. We have the models that allow you to pour into these people's lives. And, of course, we also have highly qualified people, men and women, who have exercised leadership in the military, in education, in business, and who are trained in helping you bring out the best in the people that are around you. And what are the benefits? Well, for you personally, it helps build your career. If you gain the reputation for being able to develop people and develop leaders, you will never be out of work. What does it do for your organization? It helps build it. You will be contributing to the most significant element of your organization. The most significant thing about an organization is what goes on in the minds of its leaders. What you will be doing is influencing the most critical element in your organization. And in addition to that, you'll be leaving a legacy. You will be leaving footprints that will not be washed out by the rain or blown away by the wind, because they will be imprinted in the lives of the people who are becoming great leaders because of your influence.